Right on.
Okay, thanks for joining, folks. My name is CJ Westfall, and this is the Weekly Grab. There's also a lot of people in boxes today. I'm aware of that. We have a special guest today I'm going to introduce right after the intro. Those three handsome young devils on that intro were the folks beside me and below me, Justin Robertson and Joel Bryant, who has left but will be back. But today we have a special guest, District 94 State Representative, Republican Gil Gatch. Thanks for joining the show. How's your day going, Gil?
It's going great, guys, and thanks so much for having me.
Man, so Gil, if you're not aware of who he is, he represents a big chunk of Somerville. And I think your district has a part of North Charleston, or is it just Somerville?
There's a bit of Charleston towards like the Lincolnville area where Charleston County jumps into Somerville.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, guys, if you're new to the show, we're going to hit stories locally. We're going to hit stories at the state legislature level. And we're also going to talk about some of the newest national stories. Yesterday, there was a Black Lives Matter rally in Charleston. We're definitely going to talk about that. I have some images there. So there's some big stories of the day, but we definitely want to spend the first part of this talking to Gil about his first session. I just kind of want to know, just generally, Gil, your first session as a freshman legislator, how has it been so far? We're in April, almost towards the end of session.
I know, it's kind of amazing that we're almost done. Yeah, we're almost done. It's almost done, and I thought to myself, well, I'm just beginning to get what I feel like is my feet under me. But the experience has been really wonderful. I had really no expectation, going into it. There's so many dynamics, as you can imagine, being in the low country and there being a difference between those folks who are in the upstate. And then, of course, the difference between Republicans and Democrats. I just didn't know what to expect. But by and large, everything's been really positive. I was encouraged to see that most people really are collegial, while we disagree pretty vehemently about certain politics, policies, and things of that nature. And you'll see that at the well or on the floor. Everybody, it seems like, I think people really are on the same page, by and large, to try to get something done. And that was something I really wasn't expecting it. I don't know. I wasn't not expecting it, but seeing it in real life, I was really encouraged. So I'm loving it so far. It's a little bit like sipping water through a fire hose, though. I mean, you kind of come around, and then usually you just get it all over you. But
right.
Big learning curve.
Well, speaking of that learning curve, what's it been like balancing? I know your predecessor, Conchelis, also a young guy, and he has young children, and he stepped away because he wanted to balance family and life, and I thought that was an amazing thing to do. How has it been like for you, just balancing time with your family and just your small business as well? I see you're posting a lot. What's the balance been like being a legislator, but also being a human being too?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I can really relate to where Con was coming from. I don't have any children, so I can't even begin to imagine what that would be like. I've been married for a long time, I guess going on 11 years now. And so Heather and I had somewhat of kind of like a system, sort of, where it wasn't like we were newlyweds. That would have probably been really difficult. That would have been a different type of burden. But what we did have that was new is that, I graduated law school from Georgetown not that long ago in 2019, and then began working for a judge here in the First Circuit in Dorchester County. And so I didn't have a lot of personal legal experience really under my belt. I mean, I'm almost 40. I'll be 40 in like a couple of months. So it wasn't like I was a young guy. I had life experience, but as far as a lawyer goes, it was a whole new ball game. So trying to balance being a lawyer and a legislator at the same time is a bit of a trick. We've been really blessed. We have a law office on Old Trolley Road, 420 Old Trolley Road here in Somerville, and we do pretty much everything, criminal defense and family law, wills. We do a lot of civil litigation as well, and we've got I mean, I don't want to even tell you how many clients that we have right now. We had appointments scheduled from 9 to now, and my last client just left. Trying to figure out how to, pack it in on Mondays and Fridays, and then work during the week as much as I can before and after session. It's difficult, and I know one thing: legislators who are lawyers get a bit. We get a little bit of like protection when it comes to certain court dates. So like if we have a court date, we get protection. We can say, hey, look, I have legislative duties that conflict. Can I be rescheduled? Sure. But I don't really want to take advantage of that, because if I'm not working, how do I pay the bills? So usually, whenever I possibly, I'm figuring out a way to make it work. But all of it has been really wonderful, exhausting. We don't have kids, so I can't imagine what it would be like with kids. You guys have kids, I think. I don't know how you guys do it, even what you guys do with children. So, you know what? I hope that in a year's time we'll look back and we'll go, man, I cannot believe that we did that. So I have a feeling. Yeah. I
think so, man. And so, I mean, it sounds like you've been balancing it well, and I've seen a lot of your posts, and Justin has been working with you as well. What have you been most proud of in the last few months as a freshman legislator? What have you been most proud to work on in the past couple months?
Well, I think that, the first thing I should probably say, and this is the absolute truth, is I'm the kind of guy who knows that I don't know a lot. Being a freshman legislator, it's not really my particular, and nothing against anybody who wants to do this, but I don't feel like it's really my place to just charge the hill yet, because I'm trying to figure out how the process works. I kind of knew what bills coming through subcommittee meant, and I know that they went this regular committee, and then they were favorably, to the House. But to see how this works, to be a part of the debate, in subcommittee, we debate the bills. It's a learning experience. So, I mean, I feel like now I'm kind of getting the hang of it. I understand, when I get the packets in for the bills that are up for debate, and when I get letters, lots of letters, and I'm on K through 12 subcommittee in the Education Committee, and then I'm also on the Legislative Oversight Committee. My subcommittee is DHS, so the Health and Human Services. So we just today, what I'm thinking of is, while I'm trying to talk, is that we had about a 2.5 hour talking about balancing. On Mondays, our Legislative Oversight Committee has a meeting where we are, and I'm lucky that we get to use Zoom to be a part of that. But we, under oath, we basically interview, administrative groups and get to ask them questions. So I guess if I had to be proud of something, I guess education, especially K.
That was my next question. I know that was a big focal point for your campaign.
We've been really, I had no idea. It was funny. I campaigned on education. I had no idea what committee I was going to be on. I couldn't have, they just kind of assign those to us. We kind of find out. So I felt like I was really lucky and blessed to be on education, and specifically K through 12. My mom was and still teaches now. She's been teaching for 38 years. So a lot of the things that we did, I mean, of course, we unfroze the pay freeze for teachers. We reinstated retroactively the step increase, which means that here in the next several weeks, the teachers should be getting a lump sum payment in their bank account, which will be, I'm sure, they'll be very love to have that. That'll be great. That'll be retroactive from last year. We also were looking at the kids who, because of the pandemic, they decided to be homeschooled. And a lot of them, especially the ones who were in athletics, they were going to be penalized, because the way that the law currently is that if they are homeschooled, they have to wait a year before they can get back into sports. And a lot of that was fair, because, are you kidding me? These kids who are, that really was the pandemic's fault. It wasn't their fault. So we fixed that. We introduced sort of a savings account legislation that I don't believe has come to the floor yet, but I believe that that's going to be looked at very favorably. Savings account allows lower income families to have more choice. It's kind of a school choice type of option. Oh, another thing that was really great for low-income families was schools of innovation. This was kind of a huge topic, but the schools of innovation, we have 3, I believe, right now in South Carolina. 2 of them, well, there's 4, but 2 of them are kind of split in Charleston County, 1 in Spartanburg. And all of the testimony from parents were like so incredibly positive. I mean, people were saying this is, we heard the quote, life altering over and over and over. And, it's kind of, to get in the weeds, it might be a little boring, but basically the summary is that school districts that are lower performing can decide, and the school boards can vote on whether or not particular schools can sort of find new ways to be productive and to, attack the challenges that their underperforming students are having. And then what we've seen is just an unbelievable outpouring of support from parents and also productivity from the kids. So what's interesting though, and not to just to kind of give you a taste, most of the critics were really not even, they weren't refuting the results at all. They were actually saying, yes, we know that this is life altering. But their biggest, I guess the critics, one of their biggest critique is that we weren't doing it for all the schools, which is a good sign. And the critics were like, well, we want to do this for everybody. So we're getting there, Let's see, I wrote down a list. Let's see, life scholarships.
On the topic of education.
Life scholarships, yeah. Oh yeah, and then non-certified teachers. So right now there are, and in South Carolina, we got to do better for this, and we are. I think we are taking steps behind the scenes. You know how things behind the scenes get going, and you start to before you even get to subcommittee, you start getting things in sort of the machine and getting the legislation drafted. I know that South Carolina, the legislature wants to increase incentives for teachers to be in South Carolina because we have to retain good talent. I mean, everybody knows if you don't retain good talent, no team, no sports team, no anything is going to be good if all of their best talent's taking a hike across, to the next state or wherever it is. So we're doing, I know that we've got things in the works to try to retain that talent, increase the salaries, increase the incentives that may not just be salary incentives. Money is very important. But in the interim, because there's some spaces that certified teachers, there's not enough certified teachers to go the distance for the spaces that are available, we did legislation and passed it to where non-certified teachers, people who maybe were teachers and weren't up to date with their certification, that up to a small percentage, if they were available to fill a spot so that kids were in the classroom with the teacher, that they could be, that they wouldn't be a strike against that and hiring that particular teacher. So, I'm proud of what we've done. Again, lots to do, but we're getting it. I think we're in the right direction. I think we are.
Well, it sounds like there's definitely a lot of work behind the scenes that a lot of people just daily in their lives trying to keep up with work and their kids, their families, and what's on the news. It's hard for them to be able to follow things like that. So it's good to be able to hear what's going on behind the scenes, not only on the the schools of ingenuity, I think you called them, or the school choice front, but it sounds like you guys are doing a lot for teachers too. Have you heard anything at all? And I didn't even plan to ask you this. I just saw it come up in the comments. Have you heard anything at all about Dorchester District 2 and the single member districts legislation?
There are some murmurings around that. I personally am kind of for it, to be honest. I don't know what the downside would be. I'm sure there is one that I'm just not thinking of, but it seems like to have representation over, and if people don't, I'm sure all of your viewers are very educated with the subject, but if people don't know, technically the way we are right now is if all the open seats for the school board, let's say, there's 4 seats available and the most votes were on the same street, technically you could literally have next door neighbors all being voted in and getting it.
Right.
Think about the diversity of DD2. It might not be a representation of the diversity that DD2 really is, and so maybe that's not a really great representation on the school board, right? So I think that there's some positive energy. I couldn't tell you how great the positive energy is, and does that mean I feel like we're like right there at the cusp. But I feel like people are starting to understand, you know what, this makes sense. But you know, the way the sausage is made, I'm sure there's so much that I don't know yet because I'm a noob, so I'm probably speaking out of turn. But you know, on the surface, it makes sense. And that's another thing too. You know, I am a politician now, I guess. That's technically what I am, but I don't really think of myself that way. So I really just try to be upfront and honest with folks. I don't try to play like this politics game with people. I really just try to wear my heart on my sleeve and explain what I'm going through, because I'm learning right now too. And so others want to come with me on this journey and learn with me. I invite you. Let's go.
Right on.
It might be a bumpy ride, but it'll be fun.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a great approach because, you know, like you said before, you know, nobody knows it all and has the right answers. But, you know, as you interact with so many people, there's tons of different perspectives. And, you know, I'll use this as a transition into kind of one of the main subjects we wanted to talk about, which was, you know, the gun subject. And so I watched a lot of the debate, and we had a live stream of part of it. And, you know, me being in my own echo chamber, I had no idea that there was that many Democrats, African-American Democrats, that supported the open carry bill, fighting hard for that open carry bill, taking it across the finish line. There was Democrat votes on the open carry bill that passed the House. Can you tell us a little bit more about how the sausage was made on that open carry bill and some of the highlights that we saw?
Yeah, sure. So Bobby Cox was the primary author from Greenville, and I believe, one of the first co-sponsors that went on to sign on to that legislation as well. I don't think a lot of people know this because I haven't been interviewed a whole heck of a lot, but when I was at Georgetown finishing my law degree, I worked for the Heritage Foundation, which is a pretty well-known conservative thing. And my primary focus of research was on Second Amendment policy, legislation, Supreme Court precedent, etc. So I really was lucky to be able to work underneath some pretty big legends, big names in constitutional law and in the Second Amendment, like John Malcolm, Paul Larkin. There's recently been there's a young girl, her name's Amy Swearer, and she is now a senior fellow at the Heritage Foundation. But I wrote an article with her when I was there, and just really, I'm not sure if I agree with. I'm not sure where the nuances of everybody's policy position is, so I couldn't say that I agree with this particular person. You know, put me in that you know, that's me. I'm sure we may have disagreements, but all that being said, I was just really lucky to be able to learn and just sort of glean from them and sort of soak up everything that they had like a sponge.
Right on.
I was going into the open carry bill with a pretty good background in constitutional law and the Second Amendment legislation and other policies across the country. And I definitely thought that, you know, where South Carolina is, and reading the constituency, of course, I'm looking at the entire state, but specifically 94. Those are my constituents. Open carry, people were for that. It was like by and large open carry with training. I think that, you know, in the high 80%. So, you know, I thought it was like kind of like a no-brainer. Now, I personally, I don't know if I would open carry. I've had my CWP for a while, and you know, I like to collect guns. You can't see, you know, my office, but I got antique guns all over my.
I've been there. I've seen them.
You know, I think, you know, their guns are, you know, fun, and there's lots of reasons to want them. You know, it's not just sport. You can collect them. You can just like to, instead of shooting in a hunting capacity, you can shoot in like a sport capacity with targets. So I thought that even though I might not carry openly, people should have the ability to carry openly if that's what they wanted to do. And we were kind of lagging behind as a state in that regard. I think we were maybe one of 5 states. The other states were like California, New York, Illinois.
Right.
And then Florida.
Not the list. Yeah, not the list you want to be on.
Yeah, well, Florida. I like being with Florida. I mean, like, Florida's kind of a cool list to be on. I thought, well,
sure.
But yeah, so the way that the sausage was made really there was it was kind of like a no-brainer. You know, I think that the vibes coming from the Senate was really, really positive, meaning that, you know, we don't really know anything, but, you know, we felt like this was something that was really going to be passed through. The constituency was really behind it as a state, and the 94 constituents were really behind it too. So it was a no-brainer to be a co-sponsor to, and it was a no-brainer to vote for. And then yeah, I mean then we had another bill that we knew was coming down the pike as well, which was 3096, which was sort of like I don't know, it was interesting. The open carry, and they call it constitutional carry, but they're not really the same. But we brought them down. I think the committee passed them out at the same time to sort of allow constituents. The constituencies are so different, so I think the different people, representatives, wanted to vote different ways. So it really gave the Senate the opportunity to vote on either bill. So I don't know if that's kind of the way the sausage was made, but for 3094 and open carry, 94 constituents by and large wanted it. South Carolinians by and large wanted it. It's even Democrats, like you said, there were a lot of Democrats that really wanted it as well. So I mean, that's what we're here to do. We're here to serve, and that's why I co-sponsored it and voted for it.
And so both of them passed. So the Second Amendment Preservation Act and constitutional carry became one bill, and the Open Carry with Training Act became one of the bills, and both of them are sitting in the Senate. Yep. And I would be remiss if I didn't, ask you, in front of everybody. I guess there was some controversy leading up to today. If you're someone that's on social media, you might have seen Tom Fernandez coming at Mr. Gatch. And one thing I can say before you do your explaining is, every time I've ever had a question for you about your position on an issue, I've never been ghosted by you. I've never been in a position where I don't know where you stand on an issue. And you and I might even disagree on the constitutional carry issue, and that's fine. But over this last year, I've just really felt the need to be able to keep those lines of communication open. Because when you're starting to personally attack people over their political opinions, you just shut down all communication. I wouldn't want to communicate with somebody who's personally attacking me to tens of thousands of people. So I wouldn't blame a politician. But on the other side of that coin is holding politicians accountable. So a lot of people feel very passionately about constitutional carry. I know the police groups definitely oppose it. So basically, what was your reasoning? I know you had some reasoning. We talked about this a little bit earlier. What was your reasoning for voting against? And it passed either way anyway, so it really doesn't matter. But what was your reasoning?
Yeah, I had heard some people sort of suggesting, I guess when they got word I was going to vote against it, why don't you just vote for it? It's just going to pass anyway. And I'm like, what? That's an interesting thought, but I feel like that's another political game that I'm just not into playing. I feel like I got to make a decision, I got to sleep at night. So the way that I make decisions, other than prayerfully making a decision and talking with my wife and praying about it, my constituents are number one. What do the citizens of 94 want by and large? I can't please all of them, but that's my responsibility. They've entrusted a certain type of authority to make laws for them and their interest. And so I really listen hard, and I try to do everything that they want me to do, that's in my power. So by and large, they were not for it, at all, 94. I think maybe that's a part of the low country vibe. I know that when you look at who voted for it and against it, I think there was like 12 Republicans or so that voted against it. A lot of the people are in the low country. I think that maybe that played a part in it, but I had so many people. I live in a pretty well-known spot of downtown Somerville, and people will always come by my house if I'm in the morning and I'm reading the paper. And I had so many people thank me, say thank you for voting against that. I know it passed, but thank you for voting against it. People calling me and saying the same thing. And I had dozens of calls of people. I guess there was a group that put my cell phone number on Facebook and said, give this guy a call and tell him how much you hate it. So I had a lady on Easter actually call me, and if she's listening, I'd love to talk to her.
On Easter
morning, yeah. She had this really negative thing to say, and there may have been bad things in the voice message, and then she said, "Happy Easter." I'm like, oh. So I called back, and she, wasn't able to pick up the phone. But I had dozens of people call me, and I got to talk to them, and there was only one person after having spoken to them about where my position was that left and was like, no, I think you're crazy, which is fine, but I think that it was good that I got to talk to them and that they were open to me too. And just like you said, having that open dialogue and where cooler heads prevail, where we may say, reasonable people disagree about this, but we're conservatives, and conservatives really, we got to stick together because we're more alike in our policy goals than liberals and conservatives are. So we need to agree. We also want to make sure that we're not just totally throwing each other under the bus for different reasons. I think that most people are on that same page. But why I didn't vote for 3096, I don't think 94 by and large wanted it, and I was really shocked. I say shocked. I guess it was it's not really a shock. It's not really a surprise, but there was an adamant resistance by the law enforcement community about it. And I think there's obvious reasons about that, but they were not. They had gotten on board with the open carry. I think they resisted open carry at first, but then they had gotten on board, and then for like a permitless carry, which is the constitutional carry bills, it's really it's a permitless carry alternative to your concealed carry and open carry legislation. They were just really against that. And I was just thinking about how much the law enforcement community has endured this year. I mean, I'm, like I said, about to turn 40, and my memory, I cannot fathom, I can't think of a time where the law enforcement community has been under as much scrutiny as they are and much burden as they are. And to think, I really wanted to stand with them on this issue. And I thought that, maybe constitutional carry, maybe permitless carry, maybe that comes down. Maybe that's like next year, or maybe the Senate passes it. And if they don't, maybe it's this year. I don't know. But I just didn't want to, I wanted to stand with them and that as well, not only with the 94 constituents, but also with the law enforcement. So, I mean, maybe, tomorrow I'll wake up and go, maybe I disagree. But right now, I think that I think that the open carry with training is a really great sort of middle ground, if you will. It definitely steps South Carolina's Second Amendment legislation forward. And it does, and I think that that's really positive. And I think that I don't think that that maybe the permitless carry is too far down the road if it doesn't get passed by the Senate. But it's sometimes baby steps in this way are really, really good. People get used to it. People with the police now will have an opportunity, if open carry passes the Senate, to sort of change their policies and procedures, and it'll catch up to open carry with training. And by that time, maybe permitless carry will be the way to go. I don't know, but that's sort of the reason why I made the decision. And I stand by it. As far as Mr. Hernandez goes, I don't know.
Yeah,
he wasn't very happy about that. I saw several times, and I get it, and I really do appreciate his opinion.
Gil,
it's okay.
Gil, it's Justin.
Hey, Justin.
Thank you for being so courteous with your time.
Sure.
What would you say to Tom Fernandez and some of his followers with some of the things that we've seen in the last couple of weeks? I mean, what would your message be to them? Is it just 94 and your district maybe would have sided with you on the open carry with a permit? Or I mean, what would you say to them guys?
Sure.
Attacking a fellow conservative in the state legislature.
Well, I understand this is an emotionally charged issue, and it should be. I mean, our gun rights from the federal government, I mean, the Biden administration has been hinting, not even hinting, I mean, outright saying now that their plan is to do some really bizarre, unconstitutional infringements, like banning certain guns and restricting what. I don't think that it's constitutional to restrict magazine size. I just don't see how that ever passes the Supreme Court. And the fact that they're saying it is really ginning up a lot of, when you hear this on the news, that Biden's going to ban what he calls assault rifles. And just when somebody says assault rifle, sometimes I go, okay, what is that? We got to talk about what that is before I understand. I want to make sure that we're clear, because English is so important. We got to make sure that the words we're using when we're in a conversation, that they mean the same thing to you as they do to me.
Right.
I get where people are kind of fearful of what they're hearing as far as the narrative from the federal government. And I think that that is really the reason why, when they heard that certain Republicans voted against a bill called constitutional carry, they connected the two and thought, well, this guy isn't on the same team. And that just isn't, that's not the case. I mean, I would never be for any of these infringements that I've heard so far that Biden's been for, because I don't think that they would pass the Supreme Court as being constitutional. I believe that they would be unconstitutional as applied to whoever the plaintiff was, and they would be unconstitutional in the face of whatever the legislation was. But I totally get where people are coming from as far as the constitutional carry bill and sort of the way that they called it. When I was talking to some people about, like, what do you think the Constitution, what the Constitution does? Like, do you think that it gives you, the inalienable right? Because what is conservatism? Like, we should all know, we should talk about what conservatism is. Conservatism is the belief that government does not give you rights. No king can give you a right. No government, how great or bad the government is, can write down some rights and then all of a sudden, therefore, you have them. Your rights are inherent. One place, they come from your creator, and those rights are inalienable, right? So they come from a place where the government is simply, they've been asked and given the responsibility to protect those rights. And the Constitution is the thing, right? That sort of is the contract. Like, hey, listen, bro, you got to protect these rights. They're God-given rights, and it's your job to protect those rights that I have. I totally get that. And that's what makes conservatism so great, is because, you can't take my rights away from me. And some other styles of government, if the different party changes hands, or the party changes hands, or the government changes hands, rights are different, right? People's freedom is different. Not with conservatives. Our freedom comes from God. So I think that the constitutional carry name, when you voted against that, people thought, oh my gosh, this guy's voting against the Constitution. And I don't think that, when we think about it for a second, that we believe, maybe we do, but maybe we don't believe that the Constitution is like telling everybody that anybody can, carry however they want. Maybe it does, but everyone does believe that there are certain restrictions, like no felon of a violent crime can carry a gun.
I was just about to go there.
There are restrictions, right? There are some restrictions, and that would be a reasonable one, where if you're a felon of a violent crime, you would have your gun right, your Second Amendment right restricted. And so I think it's really just a debate about, it's not so much a debate about, like, the Constitution, thumbs up or thumbs down. It's a debate about, what is the best choice for the citizens of South.
It's kind of, do you believe that these rights are absolute? And so, like, that's kind of been the big debate nationally, Gil. And so back to what you were just saying, for people, and it's okay if we disagree on this point, but for people that have served their time, like I know people that have served their time that, should they not have their rights restored to them? Should their rights be permanently taken if they've served? So that is a conversation, and I feel like the other side of it is people see that the shall not be infringed, and so they see current laws on the books that exist today as infringements. And so I think that might be the disconnect there. A lot of Republican, and it's totally fine that they think this way, but they'll view things in the sense of, well, Constitution. And by the way, before I even go any further, Open Carry with Training Act was a huge step in the right direction of expanding gun rights, no doubt. I just think that there are current laws on the books, like the NFA and even the existence of the ATF, I believe, are unconstitutional. So I think the goal of constitutional carry would be to expand those rights. So I understand what you're saying is, like, do you believe they're inalienable rights or not? This is a whole scholarly conversation that I'm sure you've had with hundreds of people in Colombia. But that's not to say that your position isn't a reasonable position. I just wanted to make the other side of it.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it's just sort of like, like persuasion, right? Like, to be right is great, but to be persuasively right is better. So to try to convince more people that permitless carry is the best way to go is really the best effort forward in order to enact that legislation. I think, right. I totally believe that permitless carry if passed by the Senate, would be found constitutional. It totally would be.
Right.
I don't think necessarily that the Constitution requires it, but it would. It's totally constitutional. It's the idea that some restrictions that are reasonable and narrowly tailored would be okay, and that is always a debate. That is always like this back and forth, like which infringements are reasonable and how narrowly tailored are there. And for your viewers, like what that means is, like you have the freedom of speech, but there's certain things you can't say in certain places. And the way that the government gets away with infringing your right to free speech by not allowing you to say bomb on an airplane is because there are compelling reasons. That's the first check you have, and then after you have a compelling reason for a law that infringes upon your right to free speech, then it has to be infringed in a very narrowly sliced kind of a way. So the word bomb, for example, may be infringed on a plane, but not all words that start with the letter B, right? That would be a very not narrowly tailored. That'd be an incredibly generally
sure.
swath. So, all of this, is the political machine. It's all about, when we think about what politics are and what policy is, it's the voices who are trying to convince more people and persuade more people into certain ideas. And what I'm encouraged about in South Carolina is that we have more Republicans who are currently in elected office than have ever been in elected office in the history of the South Carolina legislature, which is such a huge win for our state. And I think that when you're seeing the caucus move forward and the Republican caucus get things done, and getting things done, like you mentioned, in a somewhat bipartisan way. I mean, the open carry with training bill, there were Democrats who voted for it. I think there were actually Democrats who voted for
constitutional carry too.
Yeah, I'm pretty. So, I mean, that's a good sign. So we're moving things forward. And as far as whether or not permitless carry is a great idea this year or next year or whenever, I think that it's great to have that argument. People like yourself, if that's where you are, continue to have that discussion and to continue to rally people around you who believe that way. But sometimes when we demonize people who disagree with us, I think we could get way further if we continue to add people under the tent. Like your kindness, for example, the way that you treated me is that kind of kindness always persuades people to think about, what? Well, let's see. He was really nice, and let me actually think about it. Instead, some people who attack, they put you on the defense, and you don't even have a moment to breathe. You're just like trying to play defense. But when I think kindness goes a really long way, and when you're kind to others, it gives a party or a person to sort of like breathe and kind of rethink where they are. And we as conservatives continue to do that. I think that more Democrats will continue to be won over to our side, and that our conservative agenda or beliefs or our political ideals as conservatives will continue to spread. And hopefully, as we believe, conservatism is the thing that is going to continue to save us and our children and our country for the future generations. So I hope that as conservatives, we can continue to be kind, disagree. But I mean, I'm a lawyer, right? Me and another lawyer, he will just throw down. We will throw down, literally destroy and kill each other in court. And then afterwards, we kind of go, hey, that was nice. You got me on that one. That was really good. that kind of attitude will go
and that's
along.
a great attitude to have. I think that's a great ending point, Gil. You've been generous with your time. I loved everything that you were doing on education, man. You campaigned on it. I watched to make sure that you were going to do it, and you did. You followed through on education. And there's a lot of factions. There's a lot of different fragmented in education. And so it's hard to please everybody, but I think you guys are doing a great job there. Is there anything else, Justin or Joel, you guys like to add before we let Gil hop off?
No, just thank you, Gil, for clearing up some of the trash that we kind of saw on Facebook, and getting you on here to kind of explain your point. I know that you don't have such a wide platform because you are busy between Columbia and Somerville running your law firm there and off of Trolley Road. So I greatly appreciate you coming on and explaining your point, and I hope that this gets out to those people that had some negative things to say about you the last couple of weeks, man. We really appreciate you, and we support you, man.
Thanks.
Sure.
I appreciate it, Justin. Just for all the listeners, the negatives and the positives are totally fine. I want everybody to know, please call me or text me. I mean, I am always open to be persuaded. I mean, that I love a good argument. I love a good point. And, if we could do it without the cussing and stuff like that, that'd be great. But I would love to hear, even Tom, Fernandez, if he wants to give me a call, it's 843-826-0270. He or anyone else, give me a call, give me a text. I mean, I'd love to talk to you personally, because you as a person have a story, and that story really is the foundation of why you believe what you believe. And hearing the story sometimes is even more important than just the point. I want to hear about you. And then I can remember those stories as I move forward. And the next time, maybe I do change my mind because it was that person's story. It was Justin's story. It was CJ's story. It was your story that sticks out in my mind. And when I push that button the next time, that person's point, I remember it, but it's the story that really makes that lasting effect. So please, anybody, and Mr. Tom as well, give me a call. I'd love to chat with you about it. And, continue the conversation. I don't want it to just end because we disagree or agree. Let's continue to have the conversation and really move conservatism forward in South Carolina.
Awesome.
Thank you, Gil.
Thanks, Gil.
Yes,
Great job, dude.
Yeah, no worries. Hey, guys, thanks for all that you do as well. And thanks for having me.
Yep.
Awesome. We appreciate it, Gil.
coming.
We'll end on that note, man. He's got a bright future ahead of him. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Talk to you soon.
All right. So, guys, we got
That was awesome,
we got a
man.
show. We got a lot to unpack there. You want to go the trip screen real quick?
Let's go the trip
Yeah,
screen.
we'll go.
here, man.
We'll go the trip screen.
Let's answer some of these
Sure.
questions. Brian says, why even have Justin and Joel on?
I love this guy, man.
What? He calls every week, man. What is?
Hey, bro, he's persistent. Come on, you got to give him that.
Yeah.
You got to give him that.
Hey, Brian Dale Sr. Good to have you back on, man.
Welcome back, man.
Not sure.
Long-time viewer.
Yeah, not sure of your point, man, but thank you for joining us every week. Anyway, CJ, what you got?
So, we're gonna start local because this is what the people want to hear about, man.
Oh, yeah.
Let's get it.
We're gonna start with the latest article on Somerville Sentinel.
Cool.
You already know it's the best place to get your news, when you're living in Somerville. So let's take a look at what's going on this Saturday. There is the county convention, the Dorchester Republican Party county convention to be specific. That's going to take place this Saturday. And so we made it easy for you. We let you know who the candidates were ahead of time. So right now there's a big race brewing. If you've had your head under a rock for the last six weeks or so, you might not know, but there's a big storyline developing between current chairman Tim Higgins and current challenger Stephen Wright. Higgins has been chairman for 7 years, and Wright has a background in assisting local Republican candidates. Down ballot, there's another race developing that just kind of kicked off this week. Diana Johnson, local businesswoman, announced her candidacy to oppose Donna Klim, and neither of them are incumbents. The vice chair, Randy Potts, he moved to Maryland, so they're going for his seat. And then lastly, the third competitive race that we have right now is between Peggy Bangle and Joe Calley for state executive committeeman. So basically what this position would do, it would act as Dorchester County's voice in the state party. And so this one is just as important as the chairman's race. And we'll be putting out endorsements. Who cares what we think? But we're going to put out endorsements because we want to help people. And then lastly, before I move on, all candidates mentioned are invited on this platform. This show, our last show, got 2,400 views. The show before that got 1,400 views. So if you want to reach the people, come on the show. And let me pull this off here. Or if you're not willing to come on the show, what you could do is write an editorial, and we'll be happy to post it on our website. Our Facebook group gets about 10,000 engagements every 2 weeks. So there's a lot of eyeballs there, a lot of people talking, having political conversations. And we appreciate all of you, all the viewers who are watching right now, who are having those political conversations within our Facebook groups. It looks like did I lose Justin there?
I don't know where Justin went.
We'll take him off, man. He's kicked off the show, man. Jesus Christ, this guy's nowhere to be found. But I think Don Johnson asked a really important question during that interview with Joel. How do you get the info from the about your district? And it was interesting, he kind of based it anecdotally and just decided, hey, people that stop by my house, they tell me, and it just goes to show, Joel. I kind of want to pose this question to you: Did that interview kind of open your eyes up a little bit to the fact that, hey, these politicians are listening and they're gauging about what they hear? If they're not hearing from you, then your opinion, you're just kind of talking to yourself. I mean, did that kind of open it up to you where he was like, 12 people said they're for it, 12 or one person against it? Did that kind of open your eyes there?
For sure. I mean, how are they supposed to know how you want them to vote if you don't tell them how you want them to vote on key issues?
It's so true, man. That's exactly right.
Be vocal and without cussing.
Nothing against Tom Fernandez, man, but he's in Berkeley County. So how does Tom know what 94 needs or 94 wants? So, for Gil to come up here, listen, for Gil, listen, I am not for open carry with a permit, dude. Like any conservative gun legislation is positive in South Carolina. I'm for permitless carry 100%. But for Gil to come on and say, listen, man, if you have an issue, call me. And listen, I'm a proponent. I've called Gil on several issues he voted on, for and against, and just asked him why. What's going on up there? CJ, you too, and I know others that have too. How many politicians we know that know right now, especially in our Dorchester delegation? I mean, I've been trying to get a hold of Sean Bennett for months now, on single member districts, an issue that everybody knows about, and he won't even answer his phone. So, for Gil to come on here and say, hey, look, man, if you have an issue, call me and you can persuade me. Give me a story, and I just appreciated those sentiments from him, man. And I really appreciate what he's doing in the legislature. And I hope more politicians follow Gil. Am I happy he voted the way he did on open carry or constitutional carry? No, not at all. I'm not. But, I'm not going to harass him because of it. I'm certainly
I think there's just more futuristic ways that we can hold politicians accountable. Like he said in that interview, he said, well, I'm more likely to be persuaded by what CJ just said, whereas the guy that's cursing me out of my inbox. So there is the argument that I think we'll hear from some critics that Brian Dales is making. He says kindness can be under the veil of manipulation. And, he is exactly right. But I think that there is a more futuristic way of handling things that my generation, the millennial generations, is going to handle a little bit better than, and Joel's generation too is going to handle a little bit better. And Justin, you're millennial too. I know you hate to admit it, but you are on that millennial spectrum. I think we're going to handle things a little bit better when it comes to having these conversations because Gil did sound like an open-minded person. He did sound that he was willing to change his mind on it. And if he is, then we need to continue engaging him and having these discussions. But if you're unable to engage because you're just putting up this big wall of anybody who disagrees with you, that's just horribly divisive for this country. And it kind of takes us into this first story that I want to talk to you guys about, Lynn Wood. So it's been a reoccurring theme, and we've been talking about Lynn Wood since he first announced. And I still feel like I'm the only reasonable person talking about this. There's been
Lynn Wood.
There's been no real pundits talking about this. There hasn't been any local news personalities talking about this. They're kind of just all taking the wait and see approach. But guys, did either of you watch his speech? I know I sent it to you guys, but you might not have seen it. Did either of you guys see that clip of his speech?
I saw a few pieces excerpted from it, but I didn't see the whole thing. No.
Oh my God, it was the most crazy. I'm gonna try to pull it up. I'm pulling it up right now. But I have a couple articles pulled up. But guys, this is the opposite of what we just saw. Like what we just saw was people who disagree having a conversation, and my mind wasn't changed on permitless carry, but at least we started the conversation. What you're going to see right now is a totally different brand of lunacy that we're seeing take hold in the Republican Party. This guy goes off the deep end. So this is a Fitz News article. I'm going to see if they have the full video here. But so he basically goes on a screaming rant at this rally in Oklahoma, and thousands of people are cheering and clapping for him. and he basically doubles down on all the criticisms. This isn't it right here. He doubles down on all the criticisms that he's had. He said, people say I'm a bad messenger. People say I'm this. Well, you know what? And then he just doubled down on all of it. He's like, you know what? QAnon is the truth. You know what? Barack Obama, the Clintons, the Bidens, they're all sex trafficking people, and it's time everybody knows it. And it's just like, yikes, man! Like, do you have evidence of any of that? It's like, so this conspiratorial, evidenceless thinking is taking hold, and it kind of makes the folks that are more the establishment types go like this, okay, and then it makes some of the more liberty folks who never ever got along with the establishment folks look at it and say, oh, okay, well, I definitely don't want that. So it kind of, it kind of forms this unholy alliance. I would never ever want to call myself an establishment person, but this guy makes the establishment look good by comparison. I have the clip pulled up right here.
Hey, listen.
If you guys think I'm crazy,
for South Carolinians, man, I'm telling you, Linwood does not.
No, he doesn't.
Here.
He does. Well, he doesn't represent South.
No.
I've talked to South Carolina Republicans are reasonable people. Most Republicans in South Carolina. All right, here it is. I have it right here. Okay, you guys are going to see it here. So this is Linwood's speech at the. Let's see.
Did he pull a Kanye?
God.
Or worse.
Oh no, bro. He can't embarrass himself that bad.
No,
Well,
I don't know if he can go that bad. I mean, Kanye pretty much embarrassed himself last year. All right, can you guys hear it or no?
No.
Okay. Hold on. Got some feedback there. Let's try that one more time, guys. So what I'm trying to pull up, this is Linwood. This is the guy who's running to be the chairman of the South Carolina Republican Party. So this is very important. It's only a 1-minute clip, but it's you have to see it to believe it. That's why I'm showing it. It is that crazy. All right, hang with me. All right, here it is, folks.
They're trying to attack me because they can't attack Q, because Q is the truth. This is about the children, for God's sakes.
This is.
Keep watching. It gets crazy. See if I can make it a little better.
Send this videotape. Send it to Hollywood. Hey, Clay, send it to the House of Windsor. Hey, Clay, send it to Bill Gates. Send it to the damn Illuminati.
I mean, I ain't gonna lie.
Let
I
them
hate
hear
Bill
the
Gates,
truth.
so.
And whatever they do to me, I don't fear them at all.
Here's the best part right here. Here, let me pause it and let it catch up here while we're buffering. Let's see. Oh man.
Well,
oh man. I don't think the internet. I don't think the internet wants us to see the final part.
But
Send it to the politicians, the Clintons, the Obamas, the Bidens, the Bushes. Send it to those people because they are involved in child sex trafficking. It's time to tell the truth to America.
That's pretty bold right there, man. I'm not saying he's not right because we don't know all the evidence on that, a lot of evidence surrounding it. But you know, I'm not going to completely discredit Linwood. But man, run on some merit, run on something that you're going to do positively. Let's get rid of the negative, vibe that he's bringing on to. And he's in Oklahoma saying that stuff, man. I just
in our conventions in like 2 weeks, yeah. So. Joel, do you want to weigh in on that first?
Yeah, when it comes to the Q stuff, there was some. I looked into it last year when it was all over the internet, and people were like, because it had a moment where it went up and everyone was talking about it. And I was like, okay, there's some things here that, well, let's see what these, because there's some things you could see like could be plausible. There are a lot of plausibilities, but when you look at it, a lot of stuff they said was going to happen never happened. And then all the stuff with the election. So then it's just like, okay, you chalk it up as they were gaslighting the entire time or something like that. So, yeah.
It's hard when things like the Jeffrey Epstein thing do happen. And it's like, oh, wow, all these politicians, like we know that as a verifiable fact that there were very important people that went to Epstein Island. And so it's I understand how you can go down that road, and I totally get it. And the Q thing didn't just start last year. That thing that has been around since 2016.
Yeah.
And it went away, and then before the election started popping back up and becoming more popular. And so I definitely agree that like let's keep talking and having the conversation about child sex trafficking. I've had on the state what was she, Justin? The state coordinator for the human sex trafficking. I've had them on my show.
That's right.
And so it's like I'm definitely concerned about those things
for sure.
But if you are running for an office,
but
I agree with what Justin was saying. Like if you are running for an office and you are presenting something that bold that the Clintons, Obamas, and the Bidens and the Bushes are all sex trafficking, you got to show me some evidence of it for me to take you seriously.
Hey, yeah.
And so that's it. That's my only point.
I mean, not only that, you're running on negative attributes, man. Run on some positive attributes, and we see that far too much in politics, man. And that's going to rub South Carolinians raw, man. And he's just not running the right way. And I don't know. That stuff, that's just negative. He needs to run on positive. What he's going to do to transform the party here in South Carolina.
I haven't heard what
I haven't either. It's all been negative about Q, and nobody gives a shit about Q. So it's like, excuse my language. I don't mean to be that bold, but
you're fine. Well, let's talk about. So this is Joel's favorite topic, but I think he needs a little potty break, so we'll let him take his break. But this is his favorite subject, so hopefully he can kind of weigh in on it. Yesterday, there was a huge Black Lives Matter rally. He says he's got to roll out. Okay, no worries, that's fine. There was a huge Black Lives Matter rally that was taking place yesterday. Did you happen to see any of that come up, man? And
I did. I watched it, man, and they didn't have.
Watch it.
They didn't listen. I'm not for Black Lives Matter at all. I think it's a scam. I think it's a money scam. I think it's a way to push money around. But they some of them stories they do have some basis. Whether or not things like that are happening in Charleston, who knows? But Black Lives Matter doesn't fit the narrative, man. When we saw recent reports where the founder just bought 7 houses or something like that for millions of dollars. Right.
Yeah.
And then you've got Shaquem talking about, when something like Walter Scott or something like that happened in Charleston, he would reach out to them and say, hey, man, let's get together and form a crew here. And they didn't want to because Shaquem didn't have any money to put towards their organization. That's just not an organization that I'm behind. I think it's a farce.
Well, there was no national BLM organizers yesterday. And so pretty much the story yesterday, it wasn't the national BLM. It was literally announced that day.
Yeah.
And so I was not in agreement of most of what they were saying. They were saying things. They were saying all cops are bastards. They're saying things like that. I don't agree with that. I think that's really bad for the rhetoric. So I'm going to start there. But I am going to say, that picture that I just pulled up gave me a lot of concern because we just had the conversation about permitless carry. And what I believe when it comes to exercising your rights is that you shouldn't need permission from government to be able to exercise those rights. And so that's why I believe that, even somebody who served their time, that's committed a crime, and it's okay if someone else disagrees with me, but I believe so firmly in the Constitution that they should have the rights restored to them. So being that person that I am, I watched yesterday live, as many of you probably were too, and I saw the moment where the police formed the barricade by King Street. And of course, I'm thinking, man, please don't hurt these businesses that are just now trying to, get a foothold back after being destroyed by Black Lives Matter. So I'm thinking that, but then I'm kind of thinking with the other side of my brain where it's like, man, I wonder what this confrontation is going to lead to. So the Black Lives, here's the police line defending King Street, and then here's the Black Lives Matter protesters walking up right into the faces of the police yesterday. And I thought that was, such a big moment because they were obviously trying to antagonize. They were kind of yelling at them, but they weren't violent. And so I didn't see any violence yesterday, and that's one thing I'm really, really happy about. The rhetoric was bad. I wish it was better, but the violence was not there from the last time we saw Black Lives Matter march downtown. So as I watched, and a lot of you guys might have seen too, then the Charleston Police Department, after a few minutes of this confrontation, there's photographers, they love taking pictures of moments like this. As this was taking place, the police decided a couple minutes into it, they say, okay, well, you have 5 minutes to disperse. It's time. You are now an unlawful assembly. It's time. And so the argument against what I'm about to say is, well, they should have gotten a permit. They should have gotten a permit to be out there protesting. They didn't have a permit. So that's the one argument. But where I'm going with this is being somebody that's for permitless carry, constitutional carry, why should these young black men have to have permission from their government to go protest? So that was one point I took away. Of course, I don't agree with all cops are bastards. Of course, I don't agree with violence on King Street. Of course, I don't agree with that. But it was very, very intimidating having all the police cars with the batons ready and the plastic. I mean, that was some serious imagery. And so I get where they're coming from. Defend King Street, defend the business owners, but do it without violating the rights. So luckily, as soon as they said, you have 5 minutes to disperse, you're an unlawful assembly, we'll start arresting you, they left. They left peacefully. And so that's how it ended.
We didn't see that at all last year. I'm not sure exactly what changed, but they said that all last year in Kenosha, in Minnesota and,
right.
in South Carolina. I mean, they didn't just disperse like that. So that's something new that we're starting to see. In St. Louis, they didn't do it. So I'm not exactly sure what changed from last year into this year, man. But what I thought was remarkable is as soon as they said, hey, listen, you're against South Carolina code. You do not have a right to protest today. Your permit got denied. Get out of here, or we're going to arrest you in 5 minutes. And they started dispersing. I don't know what changed from last year to this year, man. But hey, listen, we fell for that once. We fell for it twice. We fell for it 4, 5, 6 times. Lives got lost. Businesses got destroyed. So it's like, we don't trust you, Black Lives Matter. We don't trust you, protesters. And it's not just me. I guess it's just everybody. We just don't trust the fact that you're going to come out here and peacefully assemble. So, you don't have any basis for what you're coming to do. And it sucks it's that way. But hey, guess what? If I was granting permits for you to come out and protest in my streets, access denied. You destroyed families, lives, businesses. The Summer of Love last year in Seattle. Nope. I would have done this.
Well, let's keep it here. Let's keep it in Charleston. Think about it, because it's collectivist thinking to associate the individuals in Charleston with the Seattle. I agree that Seattle was bad. But, just speaking in Charleston terms.
Nobody died, thank God. Businesses got destroyed. Hall's Chop House was on fire. I mean, you don't think they have a right to protest at all because of things that happened last year? No, I think they do have a right to protest. Everybody has the right to protest. It all depends on how you're going to protest. And how did they go in there and ask for the permit? And was it, within 24 hours?
Imagine if I applied that same logic to guns. It all applies to how you're going to use the guns. Everybody should have a right to guns.
We can go to guns. Let's go to guns, CJ. So can you carry a gun?
No, I'm just saying there's a parallel. There's a parallel.
Can you carry a gun into a bank?
If that private bank decides to not let me, absolutely, I will respect their private property.
You gotta respect the law, man. And yesterday they didn't respect.
I don't think that's a good analogy.
Laws and rules are put into place for reasons, man. And if they didn't give them a permit within 24 hours, I'm not sure exactly what the reasoning was for them not to be able to protest yesterday or grant that approval. What do you know what it was? Do you know why they denied?
You know what? I would love to find out. If anybody knows, I'd love to know. I'd love to know. I was just saying, like a lot of individuals were arrested after the Charleston Black Lives Matter thing happened, and there was a lot of vandalism. Probably a lot of people committed vandalism and didn't. We got a nice view of Justin's crotch there. And probably a lot of people didn't get arrested that committed vandalism, but a lot of them were arrested, and a lot of them were seen in videos, and then people showed up at their houses with warrants later. So my only thing is if I want to be consistent, I'm going to call out the bad on both sides. And so I started by calling out the all cops are bastards and disavowing all the violence last year.
Yeah.
But when the police are not, I mean, if their permit's denied and then they're out there listening to police's instructions, they were walking on the sidewalk, police told them to stay on the sidewalk, they stayed on the sidewalk, and then police are saying, okay, now you're an unlawful assembly. It's like, that is a little bit too much of a police state for me to feel comfortable. Other people might agree, and I understand where that perspective comes from. It's we don't trust what we're seeing. A lot of people watch Fox News. They only see the bad of Black Lives Matter. In my hometown of DeLand, Florida, they didn't at all commit any acts of violence. It was all very peaceful. The churches were all there. So, I just encourage people to treat people as individuals and not think as a collectivist like AOC thinks. She looks at people in groups. I look at people as individuals. And any individual that commits acts of violence, they should be in a cage. You know what I'm saying? But for somebody as an individual to have their rights, they applied for the permission. They didn't get the permission. So they exercised their rights anyway. And notice the police didn't arrest them for exercising their rights without a permit. They at least gave them a chance to disperse. So definitely another nuanced issue.
Which was pretty fair, but it's CJ, if you go apply for a permit to go have a party in downtown Somerville and you get denied, that's not a constitutional,
infringement. It is, in my book. It is.
Well, because like CJ, maybe not today, but we have X, Y, and Z dates. On the.
My point is I shouldn't need a permit as a free man if I'm not committing any infringing on anybody's rights. Like if it's a scheduling error, that's one thing. But as a free man, I shouldn't need permission to exercise rights that God gave me, like what Gil was talking about. Like, my rights are God given, not government given. So the First Amendment protects the right of peaceable assembly. So if they're peaceably assembling, even though I disagree with like the Marxist founding of Black Lives Matter, they should have the right to peaceably assemble if they're being peaceful. That's my only point. So I don't know how much more time. Do you want to do like maybe one or two more? I don't know how much more time you have, but we lost Joel.
Let's do one or two more, man.
All right, sounds good, bro. Sounds good. So there was a lot of news that came out today, and I'll save a lot for the Friday show. McMaster coming down to Charleston, the Afghanistan pullout. But the major thing that has just been getting not enough coverage by the mainstream media that I want to use the platform to be able to at least give you guys an idea of what's going on is Nancy Mace's first challenger announced today. Did you see that?
Well, no, I thought she announced a couple of weeks ago. CJ, was it that girl?
Well, you're exactly right. So you remembered it. So she was putting feelers out a couple weeks ago.
I watch politics 24/7. So anything.
Yeah. So she was putting feelers out a couple weeks ago, but today she had like a big press conference. And I want to tell you, bro, like this was a great speech that she gave, and the contrast that she's going to make with Nancy Mace is the first thing she started talking about was humility and not trying to just remind everybody what the latest thing is that you've done. And that is a huge contrast with Nancy Mace, who people have criticized as being, full of herself and only self-interested. Let's look at this excerpt here, Justin. Just by this, I'm just judging her just on this alone. I watched the whole thing, but if you're just judging her by the only the only sentence the mainstream media put in here, it says, "I'm running for Congress as a constitutional conservative who is concerned about liberties and the voice of the people of this district. I'm passionate about working with the people of this district to cultivate unity." And so that's not what we've seen from Nancy Mace. She's been divisive. She's been bickering with her, fellow She's basically gone up there to be a social media influencer, in my opinion. It's okay if you disagree.
No, my opinion too, man. And she goes up there and brags about how much money she's pulled in, and we all know what happens in Congress when you get up there, man. You go in the phone room and you call hundreds of thousands of donors to get millions of dollars put in, and then you get placed in a committee by Nancy Pelosi because you raised a ton of money, and then that doesn't do anything for South Carolina. And then you bring up idiot viewpoints on Facebook about licking doorknobs and about
so
COVID-19,
licking doorknobs
to get people to come in your posts. Nancy Mace is not right for South Carolina, man. Here's another thing. I reached out to her the other day and I just said, hey, what did you mean by a couple of things that she was saying? And CJ, you and I have both met Nancy Mace, so we know Nancy Mace. It's not like we're talking trash about somebody that we have no idea about.
That we don't know. We know her.
But man, you reach out to her and you get an Autobot that hits you back and says, hey, what would you like to do? Would you like to donate to Nancy's campaign? But she can be all up front on Facebook about her viewpoints, but you can never ask her. Kind of like Gil Gatch, she's not accessible. So I just think that Nancy Mace is a farce.
Well,
she's not right.
That
for
was
South
a hot
Carolina.
take. That was a hot take. And so I think that she is losing a lot of, but it's okay because I think she's lost a lot of support since the primary. Would you say she's lost a lot of support since June?
CJ, I thought so when she denied Donald Trump and she wanted to prosecute him for what happened on the 6th. But, going through, listen, I follow Nancy Mace pretty closely because I do not want her to be in office after this first term. And there are a lot of people that still support her, and a lot of people that were hoorahing about her shit about, licking doorknobs the other day. And
can we talk about that? So she was trying to make fun of she was taking two positions. She was trying to act like she was anti-vax, but she took the vaccine. So she was joking as if she was an anti-vaxxer. That just got, to me, she's been a fence sitter. I haven't seen anything other than self-interest.
What has Nancy Mace done as a freshman
in our district
legislator for South Carolina? If anybody can answer a question, I'll give you $100 bill. $100 bill.
They're going to take you literally. Take me
literally. What has she done, dude? What has she done besides raise money and get on a committee, honestly?
She raised over $500,000. She wanted everybody to know that.
Right. And we heard from that political operative last night who told us that she's raising a ton of money to get her seat back. And that's all she's doing is raising money, CJ. She's not doing anything for South Carolina.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I think
we knew we knew this.
I think we knew. Yeah, when she was skipping all the debates, she was not showing up. You'd see these crazy, deep intellectual debates between Kathy Landing and Mike Covert, and even Chris Cox would come in. He had some great points at the forum that we hosted last year. We hosted a forum in the Black community called a Republican Forum on Criminal Justice Reform and Economic Prosperity in North Charleston, with Shaquem and the chair of the Republican Liberty Caucus, pretty much the best ideological room you could possibly be in. Invited Nancy, invited everybody. All the candidates came, even Brad Mole came, and not Nancy Mace. And so we heard some incredibly intelligent remarks from even Chris Cox, who had great things to say on criminal justice reform. And Nancy wasn't even a part of that discussion. So the fact that she has a primary challenger this early, she deserves it, to say the least.
I want to get off Nancy Mace. I hope that things definitely
we'll get off her, man.
And she definitely jumps back into helping out South Carolinians, man, but I just don't see it. And I hope that everybody, just because she's a Republican, she has an R next to her name, doesn't mean that you have to continue to vote for somebody like that. So just, open your eyes. It's not the end of the all.
We'll get to somebody a little bit worse than Nancy Mace, so that way she looks good by comparison. How's that?
Who, Henry McMaster?
So this is the latest from Fitz News. It says South Carolina Democrats are delusional if they think Tim Scott is vulnerable. And I have a Democrat who's going to come on the show. I'm not going to say who it is, but who's going to come on the show and debate me on this because Crystal Matthews, who's a state representative, here's what she looks like. She's a single mother of five, which power to you. You know what I'm saying? She's a single mother of five who I mean, that's amazing. She's a strong woman, right? But like she wants to travel back and forth to Washington D.C. and be your senator. And so Tim Scott, he's got $11 million in the bank account.
Oh
and,
my god, that is a war chest, dude. That is a war chest Trump couldn't go against, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, and so here's the other part of it, right? So the other part of it is Jamie Harrison. Everybody thought was going to be the super close race, but the Jamie Harrison Lindsey Graham thing, he got beat by 10 points. He got beat by double digits. So Lindsey Graham, if any Republican politician in office, has Republicans that hate him, it's Lindsey Graham. Tim Scott is way more uniting among Republicans. And so the fact that she thinks she could pick off Republican support against Scott, maybe Graham, he would be the guy. And so the article is really good from Fitz News. If you get a chance to read, I shared it in our group. Will Folks goes on to make the point and say Henry McMaster is going to be way more vulnerable next year to a Democrat in a statewide race than someone like Tim Scott is. Why not pull your resources and go after, if you're the Democrats, go after Henry McMaster? This guy's been fumbling everything. So do you, I mean, do you think that would be a better strategy for South Carolina Democrats?
I mean, I don't think so. I think that she needs to find a new avenue. I don't think she's going to beat Tim Scott or Henry McMaster. Tim Scott's done a lot, not only for the Black community, but for South Carolina as a whole. His economic development plan, his educational policies, his infrastructure policies. Listen, if anybody laid the footwork for what a politician's supposed to be doing, not only in South Carolina, but as the country as a whole, it's Tim Scott, man. And I arguably think that he is one of the best senators the Senate has ever seen. So good luck to her. I don't know what she's running.
That's high praise.
I don't. Yeah, I know, man. And I don't know much about her, but and that's not just because Tim's a Republican.
She's not a moderate. She's not.
So
she's not a moderate. She's pretty far left. She's talked about abortion up until the time of birth before. And she's pretty bad on. She's for red flag laws as well. All right, last story, guys, and we're gonna hit the hay here. I put this one in here just for Justin because I know he is a member of the Yang Gang, and today it came out that Andrew Yang now leads Democrats in the latest Spectrum News poll. This is a very highly touted poll. Andrew Yang is killing it. He's almost double his second competitor. But there's a lot of people who run for mayor as a Democrat, and it's a primary, right? So, and then look, they're already familiar with him. Here's his familiarity. And then what was this one? Second choice. So he even is second place in the second choice.
He's running against Como.
No. So the mayor is de Blasio.
My bad. De Blasio.
Yeah. And so so you're thinking Cuomo because
he's the governor.
Well, no, because de Blasio wants to run for governor against Cuomo.
Oh, okay.
And so he's not running for re-election. And de Blasio is even worse than Cuomo. I mean, Cuomo killed all those people in the nursing homes, but he's worse, bro. He's way worse. So he's a communist. He's literally a communist. So anyways, so Yang Gang, top of the polls. Is that what New York needs? Do they need Yang Gang? Do they need capitalist-friendly Democrats?
Let's see. I mean, let's see what this guy has to offer. I'm excited about it. Listen, just because he's not a Republican doesn't mean I'm not for it. I want to hear his economic policies sounded good to me. I mean, some of the things that he said kind of made sense. His universal basic income, I don't really agree with, but Yang has a lot of points. Let's just see if it works. And then he'll get up there for 4 years. Let's see. It might work. It might not work, and take a consensus there, man. But at least give the guy a shot. He's been working his ass off every time.
Well, no Republican will win that.
I know.
In New York City anyway. So you might as well.
Who knows? It might work. That's a $2 million is that populated by 2 million people? Or is that like 5
I think
million?
More. It's got to be more at this point. Yeah, and so why not root for the moderate?
Let's see.
I agree. Why not root for the moderate?
Well, I am excited to see what Yang brings, man. Let's see if he can bring some opportunity up there.
Well, I think that was a good show. I think that's a good note to end off on. I think we had a
All
good
right.
interview with Gil. Do you have any final thoughts on that?
I don't, man. I just, I know CJ, you and I came out very aggressively. I hate to bring up old stuff in 2019 and 2018, but you get a lot more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. And I just hope that a lot more politicians are a little bit more apt to listening to their constituents and people that have, disagreements with them like Gil does. And I respect Gil for that. Yes, I don't agree with some of the policies that he's voted on, and I don't agree on that, but he's willing to listen and hear.
At least he was willing to engage the argument. I won't name them, but I've had my politician in the past that I've reached out to, and I have reached out kindly, like we spoke to Gil, and they were just unwilling to engage for no reason. And in that case, I think if a politician's unwilling to engage, unwilling to hear you out, then go on the attack. But this is clearly a guy who wanted to engage the other side of the argument, the other side of the issue. So thankful that he came on. And I hope it leads to a lot more of local politicians wanting to come on and know that, hey, we might have a disagreement, but at least you can get in front of thousands of people and give your side of it. So
that's right.
That's my final thoughts.
Play that commercial.
Oh, yeah. Don't let me forget. Here it is. So you want to tell people before I play, or you want me to just play it?
So, guys, a lot of you already know I'm 1/3 owner of a regional fight championship, Ram Fighting Championships. We have our first fight May 8th. Come out and check us out. UFC Hall of Famer Matt Hughes will be there signing autographs and taking pictures. And you can get your tickets at www.ram-fc.com. Go ahead, CJ.
I am the greatest like Matt Hughes. Wow. Two-faced jab, you become views. Rep, come back with your bad news. Ain't no way that I can lose. No. Punch ain't light like a feather. You'll see. That hit sting like a pepper. Right, see. We all know that I'm better. Oh, please. Like I'm Conor McGregor.